Islam, Islam, Islam. We want to welcome everyone to our Morris Perspective Slam, sponsored by our Morris American government. Our host for tonight's is our National Grand Speaker Morris America, Dr. Sidney Mitchell, or Hibby Cupwell. Now, at this time, we're going to call forth our National Assistant Grand Secretary of the State, Dr. Ginger Anit occurred today for the opening of our meeting according to law. Islam, you have started?
Islam, close as a left out.
You have the floor.
Gratitude, gratitude. Islam, Islam, Islam family. I am the National Assistant Grand Secretary of State, Dr. Ginger Anit Occurred. But first, let me rise and give praises to our great God Allah. I give honors to our Holy Prophet, Noble Jew Ali. I give honors to Act 1. I give honors to all my government officials. And at this time, where I will be reciting our ancient comedian at that prayer. Now let us come forth with our ancient comedian at that Moorish American prayer. And as we come forth, we ask that you open up your hearts and your minds as we open up the way. Islam, Islam, Islam. Ya Allah Anuhuru Makut Netaru. Ya Allah Efhesaru. Ya Allah Ma'aharu. Ya Allah Hoteparu. Ya Allah Haru. Ya Allah Ma'aterahuti. Ya Allah Awajit Jehuti. Ya Allah Per Im Saket Per Im Haru. Ya Allah Bamahuti. Hedget Sepsis Ray up to Ali. Amen. Alisa, Alisa, Alisa. And that is to say in transliteration, family, O Allah, the Father of the universe, O Allah, the Father of love, O Allah, the Spirit of truth, O Allah, the Spirit of peace, O Allah, the Spirit of freedom, O Allah, the Spirit of justice, O Allah, you are my protector, O Allah, you are my guide, O Allah, you are my salvation, by night and by day, O Allah, through your holy prophet, O Allah, Jew Ali. Amen. Holy Isa, Holy Isa, Holy Isa. And now let us come forth before you with our divine constitution of Moorish America, salvation, our God, and unity. Act 1. The Grand Sheikh and the Chairman of Moorish America are empowered to make law and enforce laws with the assistance of the Prophet and the Grand Body of Moorish America. The Assistant Grand Sheikh is to assist the Grand Sheikh in all affairs. He lives according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and it is known before the citizens of Moorish America. The bylaws. Act 2. All meetings are to be open and closed promptly according to the Circuit 7 and love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Friday is our holy day of rest, because on a Friday the first man was formed in flesh, and on a Friday the first man departed out of flesh and ascended unto his Father God Allah. For that cause Friday is the holy day for all Muslims all over the world. Act 3. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice must be proclaimed and practiced by all citizens of Moorish America. No citizen is to put in danger or accuse falsely his brother or sister on any occasion at all that may harm his brother or sister, because Allah is love. Act 4. All citizens must preserve these holy and divine laws, and all citizens must obey the laws of the government, because by being a Moorish American, you are a part and a parcel of the government and must live the life accordingly. Act 5. No organization of Moorish America is to cause any confusion or to overthrow the laws and constitution of the said government, but to obey hereby. Act 6. With us, all citizens must proclaim their nationality, and we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed, that they may know that they are a part and a parcel of this said government, and know that they are not Negroes, colored folk, black people, or Ethiopians, because these names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. But this is a new era of time now, and all men now must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live and the nations of the earth. This is the reason why Allah, the great God of the universe, ordained Noble Jew Ali, the prophet, to redeem his people from their sinful ways. The Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites, whom inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. Act 7. All citizens must promptly attend their meetings and become a part and a parcel of all uplifting acts of Moorish America. Moorish Americans must pay their dues and keep in line with all necessities of Moorish America, and then you are entitled to the name of faithful. Husband, you must support your wife and children. Wife, you must obey your husband and take care of your children and look after the duties of your household. Sons and daughters must obey father and mother and be industrious and become a part of the uplifting of fallen humanity. All Moorish Americans must keep their hearts and minds pure with love and their bodies clean with water. This divine covenant is from your holy prophet, Noble Jew Ali, through the guidance of his Father God Allah. Now that this meeting has been opened according to the Circle 7 and love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, we want to turn everything back over to our Counsel General of Texas, Dr. Marvin Edwards Bay. Are you there, God-man?
Food for thought. Gratitude, God.
Gratitude. You got the floor.
Gratitude. Gratitude, National Assistant Grand Secretary of State, for the opening of our meeting, according to law. And I will start by giving my praise and honor. Islam, Islam, Islam. We want to welcome everyone to our Morris Perspective class, sponsored by our North American government. Our host of tonight's class is our National Assistant Grand Speaker for North America, Dr. Federo Nitiel Mohezi Sexuel. And at this time, I will be reading our subject chapter of the week. Hold on. Let me get my honors. I'm Divine Minister Dr. Marvin Edwards State, Consul General of the Texas Territory, right, and giving all praise to the great God Allah, the Father of the universe, and giving highest honors to Prophet, our Prophet, Prophet Noble Jew Ali. I give high honor to our theocratic government, our Morris American government. I give high honor to our A1. I give high honor to all of our citizens and citizens of this Morris American government, and everything that is Morris. That's everything that the Prophet brought to save us as a nation of people, so that all of humanity may be saved from the wrath of Allah. And at this time, I will begin reading our subject chapter of the week. Yehoshua appears fully materialized to the eastern sages in the palace of Prince Ravana in India, to the Magi and priests in Persia. Three wise men speak in praise of the personality of the Nazarene. And I will begin. Ravana, Prince of India, gave a feast. His palace in Orissa was the place where men of thought from all the farther east were wont to meet. Ravana was the prince with whom the child Yehoshua went to India with when 12 years old. The feast was made in honor of the wise men of the east. Among the guests were Lindsay, Didiapati, and Lamar. The wise men sat about the table talking about the needs of India and the world. The door unto the banquet hall was in the east. A vacant chair was at the table to the east. And as the wise men talked, a stranger entered unannounced, and raising up his hands in benediction, said, "All hail." A halo rested on his head, and light, unlike the light of the sun, filled all the room. And Yehoshua sat down in the vacant chair. And then the wise men knew it was the Jewish prophet who had come. And Yehoshua said, "Behold, for I am risen from the dead. Look at my hands, my feet, my sides. The Roman soldiers pierced my hands and feet with nails, and then one pierced my heart. They put me in a tomb, and then I wrestled with the conqueror of men. I conquered death. I stepped upon him and arose, brought the mortality to light, and painted on the walls of time a rainbow for the sons of men. And what I did, all men shall do. The gospel of the resurrection of the dead is not confined to Jew and Greek. It is the heritage of every man of every kind and kind. And I am here, a demonstrator of the power of man. Then he arose and pressed the hand of every man and of the royal host, and said, Behold, I am not yet made of the fleeting wind, for I am flesh, bone, and bronze, but I can cross the borderline at will. And they talked together there a long time, a long, long time. Then Yehoshua said, I go my way, but you shall go through all the world and teach the gospel of the omnipotence of man, the power of truth, the resurrection of the dead. He who believes the gospel of the Son of Man shall never die. The dead shall live again. Then Yehoshua disappears, but he had sown his seed. The words of life were spoken in Orissa, and all of India heard. The Magi and priests were in the silence of Persepolis, and in Casper and the Magian masters, who were first to greet the child of promise in the shepherd's home in Bethlehem, were the priests. And Yehoshua came and sat with them. A crown of light was on his head. And when the silence ended, Casper said, a master from the royal council of the silent brotherhood is here. Let us give praise. And all the priests and masters stood and said, all hail. What message from the royal council do you bring? And Yehoshua said, my brothers of the silent brotherhood, peace on earth, goodwill to men. The problem of the age has been solved. A Son of Man has risen from the dead, has shown that human flesh can be transformed into flesh divine. Before the eyes of men, this flesh in which I come to you was changed. The speed of light from human flesh. And so I am the message that I bring to you. To you I come, the first of all the race, to be transmuted to the image of Allah. What I have done, all men will do. And what I am, all men shall be. But Yehoshua said no more. In one short breath, he told the story of his mission to the sons of men. And then he disappeared. The Magi said, some time ago, we read this promise, now fulfilled, upon the dial plate of heaven. And then we saw this man who has just demonstrated to us the power of man to rise from carnal flesh and blood to flesh of Allah, a babe in Bethlehem. And after many years, he came and sat with us in these same groves. He told the story of his human life, of trials, sore temptations, buffetings, and woes. He passed along the thorny way of life till he had risen and overthrown the strongholds of Allah and man. And he is now the only master of the human race whose flesh has been transmuted into flesh divine. He is the God-man of today, but every one of earth shall overcome and be like him, a son of Allah. Islam, Islam, Islam. I am Divine Minister Dr. Marvin Edward Spade, Consul General of the Texas Territory. Today's date is December 20th, 2025. We give honor to our National Assistant Grand Secretary of the State, Dr. Denver Neal Curtis Big, for the opening of our meeting according to law. And an honor to Dr. Marvin Edward Spade, Consul General of Texas, for the reading of the chapter of the week of our Holy Quran and taking registration. And again, We want to welcome everyone to our Morris Perspectives class, sponsored by our Morris American government. We give honor to our host for tonight's Morris Perspectives class subject, coming from our chapter 42, ayat 32. And at this time, we will now call to the floor our host, our National Grand Chief, Dr. Shedu Oneti El Mohedi Spectuel. Are you there, God man?
Unmuted.
Islam, can you hear me, brother?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
Praise be to Allah. Islam, gratitude. Islamism without the schism. Want to rise upon the seven within the unbroken circle of justice, mercy, love, and right, and give all praises to the great God Allah, Father God Allah, and honors to his holy prophet, honors to our holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali, El-Hajj Sharif Abdul Ali, that is. We give honors to our Moorish kin once again, here, there, and everywhere, and therefore honors to all of you who are continuously honoring yourselves by being yourselves. We give honors to our Grand National Seal. We give honors to our Grand National Emblem, National Flag, Divine Constitution and bylaws, and honors to all of you who are indeed a living manifestation and personification of everything that our holy prophet brought to exhume us as a nation. Want to give honors to our National Grand Sheikh Emeritus, Dr. Serapis Amin Rael, and honors to all of our Moorish kin, that can hear within the sound of our voice the truth of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, as it has been brought forth by our holy prophet. Praise be to Allah, Islamism without the schism. We welcome our Moorish kin to another Moorish Perspectives again, and we have a grand drawing to bring forth to our family. For those of you who would like to participate, we have sent the link out, so that you can join the panel, and also let the world know that you are here, standing up and being accounted for. Praise be to Allah, Islamism without the schism. Allah is definitely leading on and victory is sure. Our subject matter will be coming forth from our previous chapter, and we'll be dealing with chapter 42. Again, Yehoshua appears fully materialized to the Eastern sages. Remember, this was a time, when ones was thinking that our beloved brother had been took off the count. Yet he was still about his father's business, disappeared and reappeared, so to speak, fully materialized. As he had been teaching the people, uplifting the masses, a thing that we can all learn from. We have a very powerful subject matter. If you are looking at the measure online, you can already see it flowing across the bottom of the screen as a banner. And our subject title is actually entitled, "The Magi Said, Some time ago, we read this promise, now fulfilled upon the dial plate of heaven." And this is a special promise according to the Magi. They said, and then we saw this man who has just demonstrated to us the power of man to rise from carnal flesh and blood to flesh of Allah, a baby in Bethlehem. We emphasized a measure on this in our last measure. The fact that this one was called a baby in Bethlehem. And we know that these are the ones that had came when they seen the sign of, Yehoshua basically in the heavens, according to the Piscean records. There were 3 Magi. In fact, there's a lot of significance to the Magi because they seen his star. In all actuality, what they really seen, was the North Star that has a celestial scimitar in the form of the Big Dipper that rotates around it. And it was in clear view, which is a symbol of justice being on the manifest. That's what that is. The Magi, contrary to the popular belief, a lot of people think that these were pagans, are unbelievers, just a group of 3 priests that come off the manifest without any significance. But if you do investigation, into who the actual Magi were, the Magi are actually referred to in the Grand Quran in Surah Al-Hajj, Surah 22, Ayat 17. And the term Al-Majus is used. And this is referring to the people, that are of a Persian background, and they are also known as Zoroastrians, and they practice the way of life of Zoroastrianism. Some people, like to try to demonize the teachings of Zoroastrianism, but they have no idea. In fact, a lot of their history overlaps into the history of the Iranians, and they go into other measures. So a great God, Allah, reached out to them, through a revelation that he had sent to them. So Zoroastrianism, according to Islam, in its purest form, is indeed a legitimate faith, so to speak. They were actually mentioned alongside, the believers, the Muslims, the Sabians, you see, and the Magi. It says that Allah would judge between them, in his own time. Man has already been trying to set itself up as a judge between each other, going back and forth for years. However, when it comes down to it, Allah is the one who makes the final judgment between the people. The Magi were people who are always in tune. When you go into the background of their history as it relates to, the concepts of dealing with time, astronomy, astrology, alchemy, and deep esoteric knowledge. So this is why they were prepared, when one appeared on the manifest. They had already read about it in the records. And notice they say the dial plate of heaven. What is the dial plate of heaven? We know a dial plate is what we call a timepiece. When we get into exactly what it is, it's actually what we call, the plane disc of a dial, a timepiece. Anytime you're looking at a watch, for example, the background of that watch that has, the ticking mechanisms in it, where you have hands going around it, this is what we call a dial plate. That dial plate is based upon the concept of, astrologics as it relates to the 12 signs in heaven. Some people call it the world of little animals, zodiac. In ancient Kemet, it was known as the Dendra wheel. And this wheel of Dendra, which represents a particular wheel that represents time, we know that masterminds come throughout those times and climes. And this is why we say in Moorish science that we measure time by cycle ages. So the time had come on the manifest that they had already had a knowledge of by observing, what was in the heavens upon the heavenly dial plate. And through those calculations, they knew that one was on the manifest, or one, would be coming to the manifest, that would be the fulfillment of everything it is that they had seen. You see? So in that particular time, when this is special one come on the manifest, they like to call it the age of Pisces and so forth and so on. And we have our particular measure when we go into the circle 7 made manifest, and we get into the knowledge of the dial plate. There's a particular time that Yehoshua came on the manifest. In fact, I'm going to give our family some insight right now. We're going to open this up so that our family can see, and want to give a welcome to our brothers on the panel as well, and sisters on the panel. So let me pull this up. Let's see here. We'll go into the website, Matheno's Archives. We have a lot of information there, family. It's linked to our website, been there for a few years. But all you got to do is tap that in, and the rest of it gonna come up. So let me share my screen real quick so we can kind of give our family some background. Oh, there we go. Okay, so y'all should be able to see what's going on here now. So I want to give you an idea of what we're saying when we say dial plate, because when we use a lot of this language, sometimes our people, it's fanciful to them, and they don't really get it. This is actually, a grand expression of the various teachings that have come throughout, the climes and times as it relates to the dial plate of heaven. If we understand what we're looking at, we know that's 360 degrees of knowledge coming from various schools and teachings and teachers, so to speak, right? So when we get deep into the science, as we always like to bring measures on the manifest that give us, what we call a practical application of what it is, that represent what it is that we study. So if we were looking at this particular expression of the dial plate of the heavens, then that dial plate of the heavens will bring us actually to the area where we are now. In fact, in this special monthly cycle that we're dealing with now. And if we were dealing with this by cycle ages, as opposed to just looking at the monthly expression, we will see mut comedically, and this represents a cycle age of diligence, because these are these 12 measures that deal with the dial plate of the heavens as it relates to moving from 1 to 12, represents our 12-step ladder, as well. So here it says mut, and this is diligence. Mut is actually, one of the goddesses of ancient Kemet, but that's a whole nother measure. We ain't going into that now. We want to deal with, this time and climb. We'll only mention these to let you know this is what this is, because we want to stay the course, so to speak, because we have a particular emphasis that we are going into tonight. And so diligence, we already know diligence is when one is pretty much consistent and persistent into accomplishing a particular thing. You see? Coming into the actual measure that is actually coming upon us in a few days, we'll be crossing over in 2 days, what will be the Cunham degree, as it relates to the month. But this is the most specific time that's mostly important, because this 2100 year cycle age represents what we call benevolence. So at this particular time, a lot of people like to refer to this, on the 25th as the birth of Yehoshua and so forth and so on. When we go into the concept of benevolence, benevolence represents a particular school of thought. Someone that is benevolent is someone that is also a charitable philanthropist, so to speak. Someone that is, coming to manifest things as a result of the concept of love. And you hear me say all the time, we emphasize the fact that these principles are abstract, meaning they exist outside of our reality until we bring them into our reality and make them our reality. What do we mean when we say abstract? You see, look it up, but we can go there for you. An abstract concept, in most cases, according to definition, it goes into what we say existing in thought or as an idea, but not having a physical or concrete existence. And we can say this about, the divine attributes and so forth and so on. It doesn't mean that these things don't exist. It's saying that they are only, a measure that is thought upon until we make them manifest, just like what we call the exercise of saving power. Until we can bring that power on to manifest in our exercise of it, then that is special power, is something that is sought after. So in order for benevolence or the degrees of that benevolence to be made manifest, then it would have to be made manifest in a man. Just like every other principle, when we talk about our holy prophet and we say he is a love thought of the great God Allah made manifest in human flesh, that means that love pretty much is the complete embodiment, of what our prophet came to represent. And all of us have, as we tell our people all the time, talents. All of us have, properties of divinity that were placed within us. You see, more so than other people. More so than other people. Some of us have these things at a greater degree. When one actually manifests the principles of benevolence, some of the drawings had to do with being kind-hearted or warm-hearted, but the main root deals with kindness. Even a smile, on a level of simplicity can be a degree of benevolence. You see? So when we talk about a 2100 year cycle age, that's 2,100 years of benevolence. And we always tell our family, imagine if you can hold your thought that long. Some of our people can't hold their thought 21 days in a mindset of benevolence. But the masterminds who came throughout the climes and time, they had the ability to exercise their will and express 2,100 years of benevolence. They could hold a thought that long. And this is why we get into the importance, on why we measure time by cycle ages. Because it doesn't only have to do with the event of one that comes, to bring forth a paradigm shift in a particular cycle, but it actually has a lot to do with the fact on that a thought was being able to be held that long before one moved to another cycle. And as one move into that new thought of the next cycle age, then there would be a new vessel that would come forth and express that same thought, but at a higher degree of vibration. because we know that unfoldment in life has to do with everything that deals with progression. And as man unfolds, his God unfolds. So benevolence in the previous cycle would not be as potent as it is in the cycle that follows, but it is nevertheless right on time during that particular time and climb that it come in the previous cycle. So benevolence, as it reached us in this particular cycle that we came into, came with all the potencies of everything that come before it. That's just what it is. So humanity continues in progression as a result of the lessons and the blessings that they have received in the previous cycles. And we call this a process of spiritual evolution, not evolution where we are, coming up out of the water as it relates to dealing with, being a certain form of life and evolving into this life like they try to teach you, in the Darwinian theory. That ain't what we talking about. We spoke on this before. This all has to do with the evolution of consciousness. And this is why the Magi was ready. This is why the Magi could identify with the signs within the heavens, that scimitar and star. They recognized that as a representation of the mastermind or the teacher who would come to uplift the people. But see, it doesn't stop there. Because these are actually the last rungs upon the ladder. The last three in this particular quadrant that we are dealing with. Because what follows after that is, what we call the age of Shu, or Shu Netta, which is holy breath, or the fulfillment age of man. Some people like to, speak of that as it relates to the age of Aquarius and so forth and so on, and Pisces when you deal with these measures. But the last one actually deals with the cycle age of religion, and that is Offset. Yet this is a ladder that we climb. And we can see now how it is possible to climb this 12-step ladder. And we know that we are told Yehoshua had his compass, his square, when he was climbing it. When it came to dealing with building the temple of perfected man, and he had an axe with him. He represented the star. The axe was symbolic, to the ancestor of the scimitar, because the scimitar derives from the family of the axe, and we know the use of what the axe represents, cutting away ungainly things. We can even go back to the Kemetic expression as we talk about Amun-Ra, the hidden within the darkness of the cosmos that became manifest. Amen is often being depicted in a lot of the pictorial expressions upon the bas reliefs in ancient Kemet, or the walls of Kemet, and you will see him handing the scimitar to a particular, individual. He have the scimitar himself wielding it. This symbolic measure as it relates to Amen, we know Amen manifests himself. Especially we say Amun-Ra, the hidden becomes manifest. This is what the Magians was able to see. That which had been hidden from those who were prideful or thought that they were wiser than everybody else. They was hidden from the world, but they indeed seen what would manifest in due time. So this is the way that Amen Kemetically rends the veil of creation in order for light to penetrate the darkness. This is relative to the concept of the scimitar being used to rend the veil of the cosmos and allow light to begin to manifest, and that light symbolically moving in cycles come forth in various vessels. throughout the times and climb, because when the veil was rendered, and that light was allowed to enter, this began time as we know it within the dial plate of the heavens. You see? And this is why, we could constantly see that kafesh, as they would call it in Kemet, as we see it now in this new era in time, rotating around the Polarises or the North Star. And there are those who even referred to this as the celestial ship of the North. It's a powerful demonstration. But we want to stay the course. I just wanted to show you this so you can see, how our people could hold these various thoughts of diligence, thoughts of benevolence, thoughts of science, the cycle age of religion. They were able to hold these thoughts. And this had to do with the vessels or the master teachers that came as a result of that teaching. But at some point, the mechanism became damaged because man became more focused upon the dial plate as it relates to the time of being on the physical and what it was that he was trying to accomplish, trying to get everything that he can before he left the physical body. So this actually misdirects the course as it relates to dealing with man. In fact, it has more to do with where man plants seeds and reaps a tree of vices. And if you know anything about the tree of vices, it's a lot that come with that. That's a whole nother measure in and of itself. Look it up. The pride, the ego, and you got branches on all of these particular measures. 7 main to be exact, and you got the 7 sub branches, that branch off of them. But nevertheless, it ain't nothing good that come up out of that. A lot of people like to call it the 7 deadly sins, a concept that they came up with. But most of our people are actually victims, of these particular drawings. In fact, we're going to visit that real quick. Because if you're not demonstrating, climbing the 12-step ladder, and if you're not in the time of the cycle ages, where masterminds are coming throughout the climbs in the time, then who time you on? The young generation use the term demon time. And we don't mean to laugh as if it's funny, but I mean, come on, using Moorish humor, the laugh to keep from crying. Demon time is something else, especially when you boasting about it. You see, when you move on the rim of demon time, then that means you moving counterclockwise. Because when you moving on the time, of God's speed, so to speak, in his time, dealing with his dial plate, then you got to be moving clockwise. You moving eastward. Anytime you move counterclockwise, you see you moving in a different direction. So give me a second right here. So we're going to pull a demonstration up for our family. And show you. We just want to pull a measure up that's straightforward and to the point. Give our family some direction so they can really see what's going on here. And we'll see that, these particular measures were actually mentioned, by our holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Indirectly and directly, so to speak. Oh, they got everything in Latin over here. Let's see here. Let me try to see if we can get some translation going on. Give me a second here. So yeah, family, this thing is something else. You'll be surprised. Okay, I think we got us one right here. Thing, it ain't strange that they be trying to do this, even though we got translation apparatuses. They always try to hide certain things from the masses so that they don't really. There you go. This is better right here. This is it. We'll go to this one here. Now we're gonna open it up so you can see what's going on. Okay. Let's see here. Let's share this again. And now that we have it here, there we go right there. Want to go over some of these things because we got to set the stage to let you know what Yehoshua, of 2,000 years ago, and Yehoshua came to, coming again, or so to speak, that then our holy prophet, what they were dealing with. And they have these particular measures on the manifest that deal with the virtues of what's good. And everything that is dealing with what is good, we know everything else that's in opposition to that, is the conflict, so to speak. You see? And they even have a depiction up here of this thing. The tree of vices alongside, the tree of virtue. So either you dealing with the tree of vices or you dealing with the tree of virtue. That's just the way it is. It's one or the other, though. You can believe that. See? So when we look at, let's look at the concept of the tree of the virtues, so to speak, first. We see that, this deals with what we call the fear of God. They say the fear of God is the, beginning of knowledge, so to speak. And we don't mean fear like, somebody finna do some harm to you and so forth and so on. And because that's what most of our people think when they hear the fear of God, like he gonna bring his wrath down on you. And that's nothing can be further from the truth, because the great God, Allah, does not have to bring wrath. He doesn't need your worship. He's not a deity of desperation, so to speak. You see? That's why they say the fear of God is the beginning of knowledge. In other words, it's a respect. You see? This is under the concept of the virtues, dealing with promptness. You always hear us talk about, being on time instead of colored people time. Counsel is a measure coming from this particular branch. Memory, we use that in the aspect of knowing who made us. Counsel come from us being able to get his truth to each other. Intelligence, foresight, deliberation, you thinking before you do something. We say think 5 times before you take any course of action. Justice. We know about this one right here, especially when we talk about justice taking its course as it relates to law. But the great God Allah does not come down on a people with the scimitar of justice until he has given them ample opportunity, and he has given them a law by which they can comprehend the difference between right and wrong, even though it's a part of our being anyway. But when this justice is on the manifest, then you see the word strictness, also equity, a strict justice, equity, correction. These are all branches that deal with the virtues of, the tree of virtues. Correction, that's the purpose of justice. Justice is not something heartless, where you use it to oppress a people. It's not a principle of oppression. Because some people hear the word justice and they immediately think that this got to do with somebody being chastised. But it has a lot to do with receiving your just due. Honoring a pledge, that's justice. We don't make oaths or take oaths, but we demonstrate what we call sacred vows. An oath is something that you take to a man. A sacred vow is a declaration that you make, to your higher self, your higher medium. It's dealing strictly with what we call integrity. That you ain't gonna stoop to a certain degree, to try to accomplish something that you want. You have it within you to move according to divine time. God's speed. And everything will manifest in due time, even though it may look as if, you at the bottom of the barrel, so to speak. Judgment. It takes a balanced mind, a myotic mind, a mind that is rooted in truth and right in order to demonstrate proper judgment. Truth. It takes one that is full of integrity to demonstrate the truth when one is being seen as well as being unseen. See, these are all virtues dealing with the tree of virtues. Courage, fortitude, magnanimity. When we say one is a magnanimous individual, they say magnanimous here, but being magnanimous, this has to do with, one that has courage, fidelity, tolerance, rest, stability, constancy, perseverance. And this is after you have been taken to the mill and through the mill. You see, one has almost been grinded down to powder, so to speak. But we are still expected to uphold the principles that we represent in spite of, as we stand within the face of adversity. These are the tests of life that we refer to as brotherhood tests or adept tests. Temperance is one that's being demonstrated here. In order for one to have temperance, in other words, patience, you have to have the gift of discernment. You have to be obedient in the acquiescence of obedient to your higher self, let's just say. And you don't make rash decisions, based off of your emotion. One can actually find balance within the silence. That's a lesson that we are taught in our Most Holy Quran. Fasting. All of these things are necessary to allow one to control temperance, sobriety. You see? Physical penance or mortification of the flesh. Being able to transcend the fleshly measures. This is why Yehoshua was able to transform from the flesh, of carnal flesh into the flesh of Allah, which has nothing to do with being physical, but him assuming the God form. Him becoming everything it is that the great God Allah expressed through his attributes. And we hear about 99 of them in the Grand Quran, but we also told that they are not limited. Allah's attributes are not limited to those 99. Those are just the ones that have been mentioned to us. But yet it is man that make these attributes a fact. It is the human being that becomes the vessel through which these attributes are operative and not just speculative, so to speak. You see, they go beyond the philosophical connotation into the actual revelation of their existence, so to speak. Faith. There are various different sub branches as it relates to faith. We know faith is one of the, actually it's on two of our ladders. Belief, faith, and fruition, faith, hope, and love. We got chapters, that are dedicated to the essence of what these things represent. And faith on the basic level, one gets into the practice of what we call religion, tying oneself or binding oneself back to the source if we have the proper knowledge there. Faith establishes, according to the tree of virtues, decorum. Something that our people find, a very hard task of demonstrating decorum when it comes to each other. They'll do it when it comes to Rome, especially if they feel like they're under the threat of losing occupation. They got plenty of decorum. They become some of the most civilized people. Can I help you, ma'am? Excuse me, sir. Y'all know how it go, Moorish kid. We just using a little Moorish humor. But nevertheless, when it comes to being able to demonstrate these things, coming from the realm of integrity, we don't see our people willingly doing this. It's got to be something in it for them in order for them to, demonstrate at this particular level. So, faith also expresses obedience. That's one of the expressions of our 12-step ladder right there. The first rung, obedience, obey. In all actuality, if you can't do that there, then how you gonna get, beyond the rest? Chastity, reverence, continence, good desire. See, all these things come with being faithful and bearing the name faith. There it is, your hope. Faith, hope, and love. Heavenly contemplation. See, now we're getting into the dial plate. Because coming throughout the climes in the time, if we know anything about the masterminds who do, it is the knowledge of this history that allow us to become strong or strengthen us so that we rely upon the great God Allah. That's what hope, comes into play. Heavenly contemplation. This is what the Magi was doing. So they had hope that one would come, one would be born at some particular time that would change the conditions of what it is that they was dealing with. In that hope that one is looking for, one is looking for a joyous moment. Modesty, confession, patience, sorrow for one's faults, long suffering. This is what we have to go through. We got to have some patience. That's synonymous with hope. We got to forgive ourselves and others, sorrow for faults, long suffering. All that has to do with hope. Even though you may be going through a hellacious condition, hope. And then we have charity again, going back to that benevolence. It ain't strange. Forgiveness. That's a form of charity, to forgive somebody for something they done to you, especially when they meant harm, when they didn't mean well. To forgive is a form of charity on the tree of virtues. Peace, giving somebody peace, even though they trying to disturb yours. Being pious, demonstrating pious. Being mild. Remember kindness? Then we talk about that in relation to dealing with the concept of benevolence. Leniency. Not being so hard on yourself or other individuals. Now, we love hard, and sometimes we got to demonstrate tough love. But you know what we mean. You got to have some balance. Liberality. In other words, you respect the freedoms of others. To truly be a liberator, you got to respect the liberty of others. Because some of our people move through the world as if somebody is supposed to bend and kneel to them. Because everything goes because they say it. And anything else don't matter. But you upset the balance of things when you demonstrate this way. Because no true man or woman, will allow you to imprison them if they got any common sense, or make them a slave. They gonna buck and they gonna rebel if they feel like you trying to, take away their liberties. This is why we know that it's not natural to have an NBC thought pattern. Because we know all these are names that delude to slavery. Negro, black, colored, Ethiopian conditions, and so forth and so on. When have you ever heard of Negro liberty during the time of slavery? When have you ever heard of black liberty during the time of slavery? When have you ever heard somebody being liberated under the color of law during the time of slavery? It just don't exist. So you know it had to be the Ethiopian thought pattern or demarcated thought pattern, a lack of unity, that caused one liberty to be taken away from them. Think about it. When we deal with our people, some of them thinking they Negro, black people, and colored people, all claiming that they want some justice, some equality, and ain't had none. So yeah, indulgence. You got to know, when to indulge and not to indulge. That's a form of charity as well. Compassion, showing compassion. Benignity, concord. These are some powerful demonstration, family. So like our people have been removed from these special measures is what we're getting at. And these are some of the reasons why you will find our people, in a state to where they are in conflict or at odds with their higher self or the higher medium. You see what I'm saying? Like, we can't make this up. We can't make this up. Hold on real quick. So now we want to go into the tree of vices, as we was talking about earlier. Want to pull that up. Second here. See what the virtues are. I didn't have that one in that particular chart there. Yeah. Give me a second here. All right. So we hope our family really getting something out of this here, though. Really hope that our family getting something from what we drawing off of, because once we can see these things clear, then we know the difference, between that which is good and that which is in opposition to what is good, so to speak. So here we go. I got it right here, family. Let's tap into this demonstration, and we're gonna make it plain now. In our teachings, everything is what we make ourselves accountable for our own actions. And we ain't trying to blame nobody else. Like we say, we don't be talking about who made you do it. The question that we've been given in our questionnaire is, who made you? Not who made you do it. Allah made us. So ain't nobody gonna make you do nothing, like I said, unless you choose to be a slave. So here we have, the trees, or the trees, so to speak, of vices, or branches from it anyway. Vainglory. We had this in our present chapter. Vainglory in most cases leads to hypocrisy, disobedience. See, you can already see these in opposition to the virtues that we went into that deal with the higher self. So these virtues here would be coming from another tree. And in fact, there's a tree that is mentioned in the Quran and biblical texts, one that brings life, being a tree of life, and then we know the concept dealing with the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is where the conflict come in, because that's really truth and falsehood strangely mixed. You see, and that's where that vanity that is beyond them all come into play. Hypocrisy. We know what that is. That's when the heart is at variance with what one says they represents. They say they love their people, but every time, their actions manifest, they demonstrating acts of hatred. They say they want to be free, but every time somebody come to free them, they go in opposition to the one that came to free them. They say they want the truth, but every time somebody give them the truth, they in a state of cognitive dissonance, like a deer, looking into the headlights in shock, not knowing that they finna get pulverized, so to speak. We can go on and on, but we ain't gonna spend too much time there. Disobedience. We already know obedience is better than sacrifice. Because in our ignorance, disobedience have led many of our people to sacrifice themselves physically, mentally, and spiritually now. Terrible. Boasting of the attainment of the things that are of no worth. That's what our teaching tell us. It don't amount to nothing if it ain't got to do with the freedom of all. It don't matter what you boast about. It don't matter to nothing as you boast of your attainments if it doesn't apply, to aid and assisting and helping your people. Look at the way that they have molded and shaped celebrities. Some that have become boastful and have walked away from their communities, therefore causing really a domestic classes society, somewhat like an apartheid amongst us as a people. So we got a class struggle amongst ourselves. Don't worry about the European and them considering you slaves and they free people. Look at our people. They think you got an upper class Negro, you got a, middle class Negro, and then you got a lower class Negro in the mind of some of our people. Because the upper class Negro think he better, than the middle class and the lower class. Especially if he got a few Boulay degrees. He part of that ecclesiastica degree, ecclesia. Look them up. But anyway, presumption. This is a whole nother measure. Presumption is just like, that shallow grave of assumable jurisdiction. Ain't no difference between the two. Arrogance, talkativeness, obstinacy. Yeah, all of these things here deal with vainglory. All of these are various sub branches upon the branches. Envy. Now we know that most definitely this would coincide with some of the things that we hear about the lower self when we say hatred, lewdness, murder, theft, everything that harms. A lot of these things come from hatred, envy. It's the parent that gives birth to the hatred. That hatred causing one to envy others' good fortune. It can be the fact that you ain't got nothing, a dime in your name, but you just got a good nature. And people just can't stand you. They hate to see you coming. All that light and divinity you walking in. You ain't got on no Gucci or no Louis Vuitton and Christian Dior and Dolce Gabbana, nothing like that. You know, they hate you for that on the physical. But this is somebody that see your divine raiment, your holy God. You see what I'm saying? And the only reason it's so illuminated is because they've been steeped deep in darkness for so long, to where when they see you, they know that it's light. And you may come to them and say, how you doing today, brother? Peace. And they look at you like, yeah, whatever. You know, and if you righteous, you know, you kind of chuckle to yourself, you know. Yeah, well, this one right here full of hatred here, you know. You don't even know them, just seeing them for the first time. They know they don't like you. They know they can't stand you. And if they get the opportunity every time that you appear or surface, they're going to let you know. They're going to go out their way. And don't be high-minded in the sense to where, you know, you're not feeding into it. Oh, man. They really go to getting unnerved then. Yeah, this is how people operate until a situation, you know, of a powder keg demonstration blow up, you know, and then they let out what's really in them. You know, you got so-called friends like that right there. You know, you got some friends, they'll aid and assist you. And when they aid and assist you, they can't wait to the opportunity to be able to say, you know what I did for you? I remember when you didn't have a partner. You know what I mean? Or one might even put it in the aspect of becoming an extortionist. Yeah, I'm going to demonstrate this right here, but this is what I want in return. They might offer you, hey, man, can you come down? You can come down here and live with me. You can come up here or come over there and live with me. And then after a few months or days, one get in there, you realize you over your head. This one actually had intent. You know, you was peaceful when you was going through the little struggle you went through where you was. And now you done went into a hellacious condition. And a lot of time it because one was already in a hellacious condition themselves, and they know you was at peace, but they wanted to disturb your peace. And you gave them the opportunity. It's called they had the envy in them. They want you to suffer in misery because they miserable. The intent wasn't honorable from the beginning. It happened in relationships all the time. Men live with women, women live with men, end up coming into a union. The next thing you know, you out the door. Get out my house. You know how it go. And it might be your house. And the way the law is set up, the way Rome got it now, you know, oh, you got to get up out of here because that one got mail coming to your demonstration. You know, you the man, you got to go. So it's terrible. Competition, even when it comes to relationships where there shouldn't be no competition, based on envy. Spouses hating each other. One working for Rome, it may have it good working for Rome, but not satisfied because, you know, their spouse might be working for themselves when they should be together in unity. You know, this one feeling some type of way because, okay, well, I'm on Rome clock and you on your own clock. You can come and go as you please. You know, even though I may be working from home, I'm still on the clock of Rome. But you can just come and go anytime you want to. Work when you want to. If you chose to stay home, you know, this really causes little stuff like this now can cause conflict when you're supposed to be team players. But anyway, let's go on. Exulting in others' adversity. In other words, you love to see somebody, you know, when they are at their lowest. In fact, you're going to call and check up on them to make sure that they at their worst. You ain't calling to check on them to see if you want to aid in the system. You know, you still dying over there. You know, that's the mentality, family. You know, like I say, we got to be humorous about it, but y'all know I'm telling the truth now. You know I'm telling the truth. Malice. You know, people have malice in their heart. You know, detractors, somebody that try to detract you from your purpose. You talk to them about what it is that you seek to accomplish, especially if they in authority over you. They got some type of position where you working for their business. That was the worst thing you can do is tell them you trying to accomplish. I'm trying to get me a new house. I'm trying to, you know, open up a business. Don't do that, because they're going to do everything that they can through their envious action to detract what it is. You better not tell them people you went and bought that new car. Or you got plans to go get that house, or, you know, whatever it is, or RV, whatever you got it. Don't do it. The nature of a carnal man is to envy. You know, if it can still penetrate those who have a spiritual knowledge and they envy when they know better, what you think about somebody that ain't standing on no law? Bitterness. That's envy too. Somebody see you happy and you may not have nothing. You just happy with being you. And you know, they just bitter. Bitter. Whispering. We know about this in the Grand Quran. They talk about the waswasil, one that whispers and withdraws after he whispers. That's shaitan. That's iblis. You know, but here whispering by which either by a hiss of hateful flattery, I call it silent hissing, or contempt. You know, they like to shoot 22s at one. And you tell them about something you trying to accomplish. You know, they man, you know, you think it's really possible for you to do that? Them people ain't gonna let you do that. No, you don't want to see me do that. You know, one is roused to hatred of another, man. We got people that have literally taken their friends off the count that they played in the sandbox with because of these particular sub branches and branches that we mentioned in here, family, dealing with this tree of vices. You see? Anger. But that ain't too far from the other tree. The fruit don't fall too far from the last one we were dealing with, right? You know, accusation. You know, what do they call Satan? In the Hebrew, they call him the accuser of men. So in anger, when one burns in their passion, you know, this can cause one to want to rat somebody out if they know anything about something that, you know, it ain't got to be illegal. You can be doing something, you know, within the high realm, but they know that it will bring some form of conflict in your life. So in their anger, they spew flames to consume you if they can. Blasphemy. You know, where ones in their anger get mad at the Most High God. See, this is where the atheistic so-called mindset come from. You mad at the Most High because you couldn't obtain what you wish. That's the definition of iblis as well. One who couldn't obtain what he wished. Iblis. Ignorance is bliss. You see, anger causes one to, you know, be an insulter. You know, mourning or dwelling on an injury by somebody else. You just can't get over it. In your anger. See? Until you can get some get back. Get your lick back, as they say. Anger. This is why you have a lot of our people so quick to take each other off the count. Physically. You know? Reckless outbursts. You know, when people get in anger, you know, they tell you exactly how they feel about you, what they've been wanting to tell you. They call it reading you, so to speak. You know, they say everything and call you everything but the child of the Most High. This is when you find out who people really are. Next thing you know, when it calms down, you know, if one is foolish enough, you'll let them right back in. Not knowing they still got that same hatred in them that they had when everything became calm. They just want to get a little closer so they can stick that blade a little deeper. You see? Fury. You know, we know what fury is. That's really a frenzy. You know? Indignation. You know, most books of holy pretext, or let's say context, so to speak, you know, they speak on these things. What about this fourth branch? You know, sadness. Now, we are given these same measures in our adept questionnaire, a lot of this stuff here. You know, it tell you when we cease to be happy in our enjoyment of certain things. But this is in that particular area. You know, despair. In despair, sometimes it brings out desperation in people. They become desperados. Y'all remember seeing that movie with Antonio Banderas, Desperados? You know, every situation he couldn't even lay his head down without having to come up out of sleep, slanging eye. You know, that's a very bad state to live in. But, you know, rancor, same thing, mental torpor, you know, which ain't nothing but another form of mental illness in all actuality, but fear and anxiety. You know, when you begin to act out of these particular measures, ain't nothing gonna come out right. Acidity, same thing, complaint. You know, oh, it's me. Now, we all go through certain measures and so forth and so on, don't get me wrong. But I'm talking about when it's a constant, you don't like this and you don't like that, and you know, you ain't gonna never like that. And then when you ask somebody, you know, a question, you know, can you help me with this? And you gonna complain with what they tried to help. Come on, man. Somebody that's pessimistic, they sadness got them so bad to where they ask for question, but they really don't want the answer. Goodness gracious. I know we probably stepping on a lot of Moore's toes right now. You know, we don't intend to do that, but if you're feeling like that right there, then that's a good thing. Because you can work on it. Avarice, love of money. Oh my goodness. Now we know good and well in the way that this world is, we're a little bit more conditioned than the animals are, because the animals get their sustenance from the Creator. They ain't got to worry about nobody kicking them out. You know, they ain't got to worry about starving, you know, because the season's going to already bring and always bring what they need as long as the world is turning, so to speak. You know, but manipulation based upon certain conditions that's been created by man is what allow, you know, the measures dealing with the love of money to set in to where they willing to sacrifice their family. They'll betray their own people for these things. Out of greed and insolence and a whole lot of other ignorance. You know, perjury. You know, we already know in the world court of the European, you know, that's talking about lying and not telling the truth. But we ain't got no problem purging each other. Rome put one up under the sword. You know, I wish you would lock your yes up. You know, and yes, sir, all right. You know, I was a good citizen. Violence. You know, we see all of this here. Now, it ain't strange that these things here in the same particular tree in the sub branches: usury, fraud, robbery, deceit. If them ain't the characteristics that made the criminal underworld, then what is? Ain't no honor amongst thieves. All that. And then some is what most of our people dealing with right now. This particular tree here with avarice, love of money, purge of violence, usury, fraud, robbery, deceit. Oh, that's right now. They're active in that. Especially our misguided youth. Unfortunately. They know not what they do or what they have been born into. Sadly, some of them, won't even be able to unfold, so to speak. We pray peace upon them that they're able to make it out. If you're able to come through what I come through and get to the age 46, that's a blessing. You know what I mean? Coming up where I come from. Because the younger the generations come, the younger they leave this demonstration quicker than they supposed to. And I didn't think I was going to get past 16. I make it desirable when I was young, out there living in that world. Next thing you know, I'm 20 years old, so to speak, and 21. And, and we kind of came to a state of peace with the self after we got to a certain degree of unfoldment and say, well, all right, whenever the great God Allah called us, that's when he called us. But we did get over the hump, though. Now, what are we living for? That's the key. What have we accomplished? How did we use our lives? We see testimonies of men falling by climbing in this life, and we see testimonies of men that have been successful, men and women, because it ain't a gender thing, but they have left their mark upon the world, just like Yehoshua did. So what mark have we left upon the world? Or what mark through our works, acts, and deeds will we leave upon the world? See, that's the real significance. When it's all said and done, when people get tired of running around out there acting crazy, they come to the conclusion that, man, this thing is all about uplifting who we can, trying to be a beacon light to our family, and leaving a good legacy behind. All the other stuff one strive for or waste time with didn't even matter, or don't even matter if one's currently demonstrating these measures. So let's go. Gluttony, drunkenness. We know a lot of our people that do that. Some of our people become dependent upon drunkenness to try to, what they call, numb their pain in the world, and end up with all type of multiple sclerosis at the liver. Overeating. It's always good to eat at a portion and even fast, because we know what overeating can do. Especially when it comes to, eating the wrong things. We know what that can do to insulin levels in the body, causing diabetes and all that type of stuff. Their dullness of sense and understanding. How many of our people that can't, find their way out of darkness, through the ignorance that they have been born in or found themselves in? You talking to them, but they don't hear you. Laziness. This is a measure. Now, some of us can be active and want to be active, and get out there and be active in every aspect. We just don't lay down, so to speak. And even if we at a standstill, I'm finna get out here, I'm finna walk some mile, I'm finna get out here, get on this treadmill, you're doing something. But to be the greatest form of laziness our people suffer from, the European try to criticize us, we actually more active than they are. Because we the one that be physically doing the manual labor. How the heck we, considered a lazy people from that aspect? We doing the manual labor. They sitting behind the desk. But laziness when it comes to our liberation is the true death of our people. That's the only thing that I can say that we are actually lazy in. Striving toward freedom. We'll do it for everybody else now. But when it comes to ourselves, we are lazy when it comes to trying to gain liberation. That's why we still behind the 8 ball, so to speak. We ain't in the proper position within the dial plate of heaven. We still moving on demon time. You know, the delicacy of appetite. Desire for delicious food beyond one's natural needs. We just talked about that. You know, they hit that palate of that tongue with that sugar, man. Take our people out of this demonstration. Learn how to eat you some fruits and some vegetables. Things that keep the body balanced and alkaline, where you're feeding the body light. Feed the body some photons, and you can heal the body. A lot of the things that they give up on you on in the ER. Disregard of health. You know, we know health is to the body as honesty is to the soul. So if you disregard your health, that means you got to be dishonest with yourself, so to speak. But disregarding your health is one thing. You know what they call it, living la vida loca, your crazy life. Until that pain go to hitting you from them bad decisions you made when you was full of youth. You know, last but not least, lust or luxuria. It ain't strange to use lust and luxuria. You know, the luxuries of life, huh? Voluptuous pleasure. Oh, they make it sound good, don't they? Lewdness. You know, languid rejection of virtue. I don't care nothing about living a life of virtue. I'm going to live ignorant, the dumb way, as they say in Louisiana. You know, rash, consuming desire, weakness of the spirit, a body given over to indulgence, overindulgence. The flesh is willing, but the spirit is weak. There it go, right there. Enticement, easily enticed by the trinkets and the little things and carrots they dangle before you, so to speak. Would the fish take the bait if they knew that the hook was hidden therein? Excessive sensual delight. You know, I got to feel good. I feel good. And I knew that I would. You know, y'all know how it go, boys, kid. Like I say, we just using, you know, a little humor here. You know, but yeah, those are the different measures as it relate to these trees of vice and virtue. And we was put here to be Lord of the plane of soul, so we can lord over our vices, you know, and be the lords of the plane of things made manifest as well. You know, at least if we moving according to the teachings of the prophet. You see? But that's a whole nother measure. You know, so it's a powerful demonstration, family. You know, these are really things that we look at, you know. So the Magi, you know, they say some time ago we read this promise now fulfilled upon the dial plate of heaven. See, they was tired of dealing with that stuff that they had seen. You know, they said, you know, they saw a man, a master of Allah's nature, who had just demonstrated to him the power of him being a master of Allah's nature, the power of man, to rise from carnal flesh and blood to the flesh of Allah, a baby in Bethlehem. He was a grown man, but he was still a baby in Bethlehem, the house of bread. You know, so this is a powerful demonstration. They thought that was powerful to see somebody demonstrate the power of man. You know, it's powerful to rise from carnal thinking into flesh divine. That's a powerful degree if you can do that in this new era and time. I remember the Arabs saying that. You know, like, we got to give honors to you, brother. All of y'all over here in the West for trying to live the life of Islam. Because with all this temptation around you, it's almost impossible. We know that if, you know, we get out of line over there, man, we got people that'll behead us, cut our hands and everything else off. But here y'all got a free reign. You can do what you want to do. And you chose to try to live upright. Yeah, them Arabs was commending us for that. That's a powerful demonstration. To live amongst all that temptation and still try to come out right and be upright, independent, and fearless. You need to pat yourself on the back if you sincere. And you ain't just doing this for show. Yeah, so, you know, we just want to get our family something to reflect upon that they can apply to themselves. You know, because it don't get no plainer than the truth. And we the ones that's going to tell it. So at this particular time, we're going to go ahead and open up the flow so that we can hear from our Moorish kin. You know, and star 6 your phone, Moors, we talking about, you know, apples and oranges, not nuts and bolts. Islamism without the schism. The floor is open, Moors. Islam, Sister Dendra. Don't get scared now.
I know that's right.
Islam got it.
Honors has already been given. That's Shahid. I tell you, I got a whole page and some more. Keeping up, I really have enjoyed this class dealing with our chapter of the week, chapter 42, and you coming from ayat 32, talking about that the Magi said some time ago. We read this from now fulfill upon the dial plate of heaven. And I'm like, I definitely gonna go back and listen to the playback. And I tell you, when you was talking about the Magi, and I didn't and you was talking about, you gave a little background on them, how I didn't realize that people thought that they were pagans. And you talked about how they came from they was from the Persian background, and also I thought about the Magi's in the Piscean area. I think we referred to them as the wise men, I believe it was. But that was so powerful, and dealing with that. And then you covered you talked about the 21-year cycle age, and dealing with diligence. And then you talked about the next cycle, 21,000 year cycle age of Purim that we'll be coming into, which would be dealing with benevolence. And that was so powerful, and dealing with the different ages, cycle ages, and holding that one thought, and dealing with diligence, or and dealing with the other, I believe was diligent, benevolence was the other one that you talked about, holding that thought of benevolence. And I thoroughly enjoyed it when you started going through those that tree, the tree of vices and the tree of virtues, and that tree of virtue that was dealing with. You covered the fear of the great God Allah, and how that's not you being afraid or scared. Allah go, so I guess throw some big rocks down from the sky and bop you in the head. But it's a reverence. Having the fear of the great God Allah is the beginning of knowledge. Having that respect, having that reverence for him. And then also in dealing with that tree of virtue, you covered seven different things like courage. How you talked about that was a part of that tree of virtue, temperance, patience, faith, hope, charity, and especially when you talked about the charity, when that's when you forgive someone, and how charity is to forgive those who, may try to despitefully use you. And that's what we used to say in the Palestine area, forgive those who despitefully try to use you. And that's a powerful thing to forgive someone, and you looking them in their eyes, and deep down that they trying to use you. That's something powerful, family. But all of these was coming under that tree of virtues. And then you went into the tree of vices and the different branches on it, the vainglory, the envy, and I'm not gonna try to cover all of them, and the anger and stuff. And these different vices and different branches on the trees, they just make me think about the high self and the lower self. And dealing with the tree of vices and the tree of virtues. The tree of virtues to me kind of represented the higher self, and the tree of vices to me kind of represented the lower self. And like I say, God, man, very powerful class. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Definitely going back and listen to the playback. And gratitude for letting me share. Very informative, very informative. Peace and love.
Listen, you're a goddess and queen. We know you was definitely tuned in, and the pen is smoking. Islamism without the schism.
Islam.
Islam, brother. All right, one at a time. We're gonna go with our first brother, and then we'll get you, brother Justice. Go ahead, brother.
Dr. Larry Daniels Bay, South Carolina Council Agent. First, I rise and give praise and glory to Allah, the most merciful. And I give high honors to his holy and divine prophet, El Hajj Sharif Abdul Ali, the last prophet in these days of time. And I give honors to Act 1 of our divine constitution. And I honor you, brother. Great class, great subject. Make them more think, wake them more up. And I honor all my officials and all my Moorish kin online. Peace and blessings, peace and love, gratitude. But brother, I was taking notes. I was taking notes because it's a great class. I mean, and I was thinking, I wrote Shu, the 21 years cycle of the science of the age of cycle age of science equals 25 to 200 years to the fulfillment, the age of man. And I was thinking, when you were speaking on that bitterness and malice and all these things, I experienced these things myself from others. Like when I got a car, when I was working, when I had to hit the clock the way I used to, with these companies, and a brother lives, just like myself. But see, we understand that our people just don't know no better. Some of them grew up in that mess, and they don't even realize they're down in it. So, even back then, I would keep moving because I always knew something was ahead for me. When I got my new car, the brother, and then I helped him get his position at the company, but I was at a steel company, and he kind of like helped Caucasians, get me up out of there. They started. I was a CNC operator, operating that it's been so long I forgot the name of the machine, but I was up in the air operating it, cutting steel. But the thing is, here they started asking me to do stuff that wasn't even on my job title, But I went and did it, hung around there doing that. But before they got, I knew they planned, so I had them went to human affairs, outside the company, and they had to settle out with me because I already had my paperwork in, because I ain't never looked back like a lot of people went back. No, I just kept moving because I always felt like, it's something for me out here. Even though we knocking at the Caucasian door asking for jobs, but I'm here in this government now, and I knew it was something ahead. And I was looking at the fact that these classes, you know, this class gives me the understanding that those who have allowed this illusionary world to mold them to fit it, and are not separated, and have not separated themselves from that which has no choice but to change and decay. So I was writing that down because I'm just listening to you, so I'm writing and thinking at the same time, because like some of our people are so immersed into this world. They're not on, because the reason why they are like they are, because they are so immersed in it till they believe in the illusion, until the fact that they get sick along with everything else around them, because they're going with the flow, uh, 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 so to speak, with things that, and think that they can't change. In other words, they're in the world and of the world, and in the world, and excuse me. Okay, okay. And you speaking of faith, obedience, and obey, and stuff like this right here, and that's what it's all about. Once and you understand that, though, okay, because of the fact that when man has separated himself from the illusion, he become the watcher. And I learned this through just studying, in our government, these classes, that I'm not the flesh and bones. And then when I put it in my head that, yeah, that the flesh changes, but I'm the witness to it all, and I know how to fix things that I can see, because if you're not immersed into it, just like I was telling my brother today, I said, because I'm at the top right here of this mountain right here, I'm looking and I see the error of my ways, of my people, and I know why we suffer, because most of us don't understand that, all these that we had to be purged from these things, from the flesh, from all these things that changes. And even though man is constantly growing, but the thing that the spirit is one that does not change, because it's the truth. And our prophet taught us that, and he taught us that we are the truth. So when we understand that from a spiritual point of view, we start to purge, purge ourselves from material things of this world, and know that it changes, but that the creator, which is the mind that creates, man must be purged for this divine mission of the raising the consciousness of nations and man. And I was writing these things down as you were speaking, but I'm trying to put it all in order. But as I look over my paper, and free will must, and like you said earlier, we can't make nobody believe what we believe and do what we do, because free will must be allowed to every man. He must break through in perfect timing. It's just like a butterfly. If you help that butterfly out of that cocoon, he may never fly. You see, he had to come out of that cocoon in his own timing, and timing with nature, because nature is behind us all. And when we understand that we don't get frustrated about the next man. We understand that he got a timing to bust through that butterfly cocoon too. I'm talking about wisdom to raise up, because the reason why us Moors are in this class, and we're in this class right here, and getting this wisdom that you're giving, what I'm saying, and our officials, is because it was our time. It's our time. And I feel that, because I can feel everything you were saying, as far as, uh, 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 all that diligence, and sincerity. And it's a cycle. and from January the 21st to the 19th to February the 19th, are set. That's the age of religion, and when we understand these things, because we've been taught that, and when a man been taught this by those who have been given charge to give it to him, all he need to do is listen and learn, and then he's in perfect timing, because I understand now, since the my prophet has taught me through my Moorish kin, that I'm not that which changes like the flesh. I'm not finite. I'm infinite. And I'm the force. I'm the director of the force that comes through me, because of the consciousness that I have, the level of consciousness I have. I know to direct the force in a good way, and always put my best forward, no matter what's going on around me. And busting by the end of its will. Okay. Uh, 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 okay. And and just and that's what I was saying basically. Great class, brother. I'm just gonna listen to my Moorish kin, because it's 8:51. Peace and blessing. Great class again. Islam.
Islam, we give honors to you, grand man, and we definitely agree with you. And the drawing that you was giving made me think and say, well, either you gonna change the world or you gonna be changed by the world. You know what I mean? And we already know only gods have the ability to change the world, and slaves are changed by the world. Islam, grand man, powerful measure, brother. Larry Daniels, babe. Islam. Okay, brother Justice. Floor is open.
Islam? Can you hear
Islam.
me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Islam. Praise Allah. Honor to our Holy Prophet, Noble Ali. And honor to you, Dr. Saeed, to our National Grand Chief for this great class tonight. Honor to all of those who assist you on the class, and honor to the entire Act One. As always, special honor to our National Grand Sheikh and our National Grand Chamber of Moorish America, are empowered to make law and enforce law with the system of the Prophet and the Grand Body of Moorish America. And honor to our National Assistant Grand Sheikh, because the Assistant Grand Sheikh is to assist the Grand Sheikh in all affairs that he lives according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and is known before the citizens of Moorish America. We know the Prophet did say, I brought you everything it takes to save a nation. I get you to thinking you say yourself. And praise Allah unto the Holy Prophet Noble Ali. I had emergency, and I tell you, praise Allah for having faith and having strength. And Dr. Chahi, I was able to get a few notes in here, but let's look at the subject matter. I believe is 32. It said that, well, in my book of 30, it said that the Magi said, some time ago we read this promise now fulfilling of the dial plate of heaven. And we know that we're talking about above the neck. And when you were speaking, like I said, I following my thoughts, but I had to deal with emergency, and I heard you talk about the dial plates and related to the 12 sounds, and as you said, that some call that little animal, but we know that we being gods, that we know how to put the truth where the truth should be. So we're not talking about just so much the zodiac and all, but we're talking about the 12 sounds. Praise Allah. Praise Allah. And you talked a little bit about holding up the divine principles, or being responsible with the divine principles, because we're talking about the law. And then you look a little bit, because I'm gonna make my point. And you talked about a little bit about that beacon light for the family, a little bit about darkness, and a little bit about lust and luxury and weakness, and things not doing things for a show. And what I looked at with just a little bit that I had is all of this is coming from above the neck. And praise Allah for knowing that we're going to have the lower self always be with us, but having been able to get back to our higher self. And when we talked about, when you were speaking, I was listening to you, wasn't able to do much writing, but I was listening to you. And the thing that was hitting me when you was talking is, who made you? And I was listening to you, and I was listening at all where things could be all types of confusion, and you feel rubbed the wrong way, and how you can be so defensive when you are being given these demonstrations. Whereas you've known me for a while, sir, and this is one of the reasons why I'm still here in the Moorish American government, because there's times that you have to be humble and understand that the lower self is going to be with you, and you have to know how to get back to your higher self. And I've had experiences of some of these demonstrations you were doing, but I've been humble about it, and I didn't mind apologizing if there was an error. Because see, when you know who made you, Allah, the great God of the universe, there is a remedy to get back to your higher self and keep reminding yourself that Allah, the great God of the universe, made you. And one of those remedies is the Moorish American prayer. Listening, being able to think. Pay close attention to what's being said or the error that you might have made. And remind yourself that you're God and you have responsibility. And part of that responsibility is listening so that you continue to aid and assist your people and not feel rubbed the wrong way. Not thinking that your official is here to abuse you, but here to teach you. Not thinking that the citizens are here to start something with you, but are here to aid and assist you so that we can keep it moving to aid and assist our people. I would say that there's times that I've had rocks in my jaw, but no one knew it. I took time to swallow those rocks and be able to listen to what's being said. That's why I'm at guys as full as I have, because I keep in mind of who made me. And I'm getting ready to go, so like I said, I didn't take many notes. But see, when you was talking, I was thinking about those chakras being plugged in. I got them plugged in, and I try to keep them there. And I make sure I keep them there. That's why I get back to the Moorish American prayer. That's why I don't have any jealousy. See, I to the Holy Prophet. My chairman gave me some drilling. So did you. So that and teach me onto our National Grand Chief, Dr. Raphael. So did he. He was the greatest Secretary of State, and that's the only list I can go on. Not once did I scream, shout, or use any disrespectful words. You know what I did? I listened. My mouth closed. Because, see, I didn't want to be about Act 5 in the confusion. And see, this has been a great class because, see, this will help those that might want to get out of law, feel like they're rubbed the wrong way by the officials. This here would help them. Keep them out of darkness. Keep them from having those weak spirits and demonstrating that behavior of lust and that thought pattern. Help get the thought pattern straight. Because, see, the thought is the cause of it all. You have a responsibility to get yourself in order, to get those thoughts in order. Remind yourself of who made you. And lastly, as I always said, for those who didn't listen or didn't want to listen to the class tonight, there is a message for you. Because it's been a very divine class, and I don't make any excuses. All I can get in. And I'm getting ready to go, sir. I don't want to bore anyone. A message for you for those who don't want to listen and claim that they didn't get it, because this was all about above the neck. And that beacon light is turned on if you're being faithful, so that you can see and so that you can hear. Because the ears have eyes if you have a problem there, and the eyes have ears if you have a problem there. And the thought that caused it all, that too is a responsibility. It's up to you whether you want to keep moving with the Holy Prophet Noble Drew Ali out front, because there's no excuses. So there's blindness, none of that. There's no excuses whatsoever. But I'm going to go and say, and for those who don't want to listen, here's a message for you. No organization or Moorish America to cause any confusion or to overthrow the laws and constitution of the state government, but to obey hereby. You can pretend if you want to. But after listening to this class tonight, it's all about continue to fix what's above your neck and remind yourself of who made you, and continue being in order with the holy and divine laws, love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, with the Holy Prophet Noble Drew Ali out front, and keep that balance so you won't get out of law, so you won't feel like you're being rubbed away, so you rubbed the wrong way, so you get them rocks out your jaws, gone on and swallowed, and continue to listen to the prophet, and continue to fix that down plate above your neck, because Allah made you. It's honor and peace and honor and peace for the class, sir. That's my portion of understanding of what I did get tonight. Praise Allah.
And praise Allah and gratitude for the measure, brother. Islam. That's what I'm talking about. All right. The floor is still open before we go to our officials. Is there any other more who would like to come forth and exercise their fire? Let the world know you're alive.
Islam.
Islam, Brother Muhammad Bey.
Gratitude, National Grand Sheikh of Moorish America and this nation. Yes, this is Dr. Gerald Hamid Muhammad Bey of the South Carolina Consulate. I want to give praise to our Father God Allah, honors to his holy prophet, our holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali, honors to our Moorish American government, our Moorish American nation, honors to all the officials of our Moorish American government and its nation, honors to all those that have opened up the way for this Moorish Perspective National Conference Call and Study Session sponsored by our own Moorish American government. I give honors to those that have spoken before me and those that will speak after me. And I give honors to absolutely everything Moorish. Oh man, brother. Grand magnanimous class as always, you cover a lot of ground. I think, the total sum of the presentation brought to my mind, especially when you were speaking about the cycle ages of time, specifically talking about the cycle age of Kunum, the beneficent, in which, the European refers to as Aquarius. So in that respect, it brought to my mind the teachings of the seventh angel. The seventh angel is none other than the holy prophet of our Father God Allah, our holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali, the last prophet of these days and times. In Revelations, in the book of Revelations, chapter 10, especially in reference to the things that you spoke of in the class. In verse 7, it says, when the seventh angel sounds, meaning speak, teach, bring forth, as he is about to sound, the mystery of God would be finished, as promised to the prophets. See, this includes all those previous cycle ages as promised to the prophets, all those that came before our beloved holy prophet Noble Drew Ali, and everything that they brought and that they taught. This is why he comes 5 times more powerful. And the greatest thing is he reveals the mystery. In other words, if someone is revealing a mystery, that means that it's no longer a mystery. And this is one of the greatest revealings of all time. Because our beloved prophet, Noble Drew Ali, revealed and made it plain that Allah, the spirit of the truth, the holy breath, the force and the will of our Father God Allah is the essence of who we are. And this is in reference to when you spoke about those attributive names that some people would refer to them. But as you also stated, each and every one of those attributive names or titles are manifested through a person, a man, an individual, or a group of people as a collective. And this is that era of time, as the prophet said, all truth is being revealed. And this is what I thought about, it's just so powerful that, like you said, our ancestors wrote and gave demonstrations about this era of time, this cycle age that our beloved holy prophet brought in, called khunam, beneficence, spiritual benefit, soulful benefit, and physical benefit, beneficent in all ways of life. They talked about a period of time. They called it khunam, like you said, right? But in their transliteration, it says when Aquarius overtakes Pisces, one will be born to come to Kemet, just as our beloved holy prophet did, and study under the Kemetian adept masters, the pre-scientists, the silent brotherhood, getting the full knowledge of the Pert Im Haru, the coming forth by day and by light, and bring it back to us here. They even have a depiction that's right there in Kemet, as you stated, dealing with this cycle age of time. Is an area which they designated as what is called the Northwestern Cemetery. No, I'm not speaking of the so-called Freemasonry aspect of it. And we know that they plagiarized and stole that and claimed it to be what they're trying to make it be today. But our ancestors never referred to themselves as Masons. I want to make that plain. And what they said that the children of the Father, remember, we are the children of one Father, provided for by his care, and the breast of one mother have given us suck. So they said that the children of the Father are buried in the Northwestern Cemetery. Family, if you was in Kemet, where the pyramids are, in this area that's being spoken of, and it just looks like a bunch of rocks, a plain area. But when one ascends unto an elevated state, and you can look down, and you see the geographical shape in which they built this Northwestern Cemetery. They built it in the exact shape of what we call North America today, the United States. There's no strange happening. So all of these things are in reference to this period of time now. The prophet said this is a new era of time. And he brought all truth. And even to this very day, the prophet said, man, it'd be 50 years before, the Moors will realize. And some unfortunately, right? Not being disrespectful. Some of the Moors really took it literally. Yes, it does mean that literally, but it's more than that because it's dealing with the spiritual aspect of time before the Moors would actually really understand what it was that he brought. Our beloved prophet brought us everything, as Swift Angel number 1 said, that we need to save ourselves as a nation of people. But even greater than that, he brought in this new era of time the truth of who made us and that we are a part and a partial. We are the living manifestation of our Creator. And he has endowed us and enamored us with the ability and the authority to do the same things that he did, to create. Islam and gratitude, grand man. I'll stop running my beat. It's a grand magnanimous class. So that's what it represented for me, everything about the seventh angel, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, Islam. Peace and love, family.
In Islam, and peace and love, brother, for the drawing. Allah is leading on, and victory is sure. Praise be to Allah. Well, all right, at this time, we're going to go ahead and go to our officials. I want to give honors to all the Moors who showed up, our panelists, as well as those who showed up in the audience, or the chat. Be sure to hit the like, share, and subscribe to make sure that we get these algorithms to hear in the rhythm of this divine rhythm, so to speak. But at this time, we're going to call on the sister Offset Moon L. If she's present. Islam, you there, sister? All right, we're going to call on our National Grand Mufti, Dr. Khonshu Mark Herube. Islam, you there, Grand Man?
Islam.
Islam is a Mufti. You got it.
We rise, giving our thanksgiving, adoration, our worship, and our praise to give him the highest honors that we can give to his prophet, our prophet, the last prophet in these days and in these times, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, the savior of humanity. We give honor to his forerunner, Marcus Mosiah Garvey, and we give honors to his government, our government, the Moorish American government, the government in which we live. We give honor to the officials of this said government, our divine ministers, our royal council. We give honors to our citizens, the Moorish Americans. We give honors to our flag and our divine constitution and bylaws, our Holy Quran, our Grand National Seal, our Grand National Emblem, our Book of Fire, the Lumen of a Nation. We give honors to everything that is Moorish. We give a special high honor to you, National Grand Sheikh, Dr. Shadu Aminti Medu Sepsuel, for bringing forth the Grand Moorish perspective this evening. We give honors to all of our Moorish kin who have spoken before us, to our Moorish kin that will speak after us. We give honors to you, Angel. We will continue to give the honors where they're due and honoring all true and divine prophets. And we give honors to our ancestors. Why they came before us, leading the way. And we are them today without doubt or contradiction. Because no one has the power to change man from his descent nature. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. And Mo, it's another grand class, another grand perspective, bringing it all together. Like I said, sometimes you step on the toes, when you demonstrating the truth. But it's just like justice, it cuts both ways. And so we gotta, be prepared for learning the lesson. If you violate the divine code, there's as they say, a cause and effect, an action and a reaction. And so this is where we make or mar our fortune, or create our heaven, our hell. And foretold in the stars, you can read the cycles of things. This is why we go with man deals with cycles. This is why we deal with time, we deal with seasons, and we deal with observation of the stars. This is where time comes from. With observing the heavens in the sky. Because if you think about it, okay, you count daylight, you count night. This is what's going on in the sky. As the things, stars move and the planet moves, you come into different seasons. Depending on where the sun and the moon is at, and these things. And so all that's tracking the heavens. And so this is important, as you said, to be able to understand where this is where different motivations come from, and this is where some wisdom comes from, and the cycle. And we see ourselves, as you're talking about, entering a new cycle of what they call enlightenment, the age of Aquarius, the age of the knowing, out of the age of belief, which our prophets told us, about. We find that we're going to have a better understanding. So our prophet talks about the third and fourth generation going to see the good of my work. It's all tied. And he was prophetic enough to be able to have that vision, have that clarity that Allah gave to him, so he can bring it to us. And that short, sweet breath. So, it ain't time for being sensitive. Like I said, feel like they get their toes stepped on, and feel like one's pointing the finger or bringing the lesson to a particular one, because it's the same for all of us. The lesson and the challenges of everyday life come for us all. Every day, the decisions we got to make, though. That's what's going to demonstrate whether we got proper moral code and conduct about ourselves, and we're decent human beings, or we want to do otherwise. Because if you're decent, you're gonna want the best for your brother, like you want for yourself. You're gonna do things not in a mode of exchange. Well, I'm really doing this as a favor. I'm not really doing it being a decent person or a kind person. I'm doing it because I want some kind of leverage over you, or I expect you to do the same for me because I done did for you. Instead of just, like I said, that's just the way I'm made. So I'm just gonna do good things, whether one do the same or not. It makes no difference. And that's where we gotta, look and judge things by, because that's gonna let you know the type of ones you're around. Or one is expecting something or doing something that's decent in the order. They ain't about the right. And you're supposed to get away from ones like that. You're supposed to acknowledge them, and if you can give them a lesson, you give them the lesson, but you ain't gonna stay around that negativity, because like attracts like. You don't want that negativity in your life. So, we gotta set it out, the clarity of one to see. Like, okay, this is the character. Our prophet deals with character building. And so as we look at building the character, what are you going to demonstrate? What you going to demonstrate? You need reassurance or evidence or facts to back the reasons why to be a certain way and how to demonstrate that it's already written in the heavens. Or as chapter 1 tells us that the solar stars, will be his protector, or his protector in his guide. Allah So I'm updating on it, but chapter 1 talks about that, about the cherubim and the seraphim, the ruler stations of the sun, and and demonstration is where we're going to get our guidance from, and actually looking into that demonstration. So, we just got to be aware, and gratitude for you bringing that forth this evening. National Grand Sheik, Dr. Shahid, and gratitude to the Moorish America for being here with us and giving us your time, attention, and respect. We love you. Islam and peace.
We love you too, Grand Mufti. Islamism without the schism. Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir. We already know you marching and counter marching. And we marching with you. Well, all right. Let's call forth our Grand National Secretary of the State of Moorish America, Sister Hatshepsut Rakat Ma'at and Pooh, Tutankhamun Bay. Islam, you there, Goddess and Queen?
Closest to thought, gratitude, grand class, gratitude. All Moorishkin, first of all, and rise, giving all praises to our Father God Allah, giving honor to our Prophet Noble Drew Ali, the last prophet in these days and times, giving honor to our Moorish American government, all of our officials, staff, the angels, muftis, divine ministers, most especially our Moorish kin. Giving honor to all those Moors that spoke before me, all those Moors that will speak after me. Giving a special honor to our National Assistant Grand Secretary of State, Dr. Zendra Nia Kurtabay, for opening our meeting according to law. Also to our Consul General of Texas, Dr. Marvin Edwards Bay, for taking registration and reading our subject chapter for the week. We want to give honor to all those Moors that brought forth such grand measures, and also honor to Act 1, to our host instructor, our National Grand Sheik of Moorish America, Dr. Shadow Amenti and Mohamed Shepsuel, for bringing such a powerful class as always. I tell you, talking about taking notes and trying to keep up. This class had so many keys in it, Dr. Shahid. I was looking at it when you were speaking about holding that thought until you move to a new cycle, and then a new vessel comes forth with a higher degree of vibration. As man unfolds, as God unfolds. And I just looked at that as building blocks, taking it all the way back to kindergarten days, whereas you are building upon, as you unfold, you are still using what you have previously learned to build upon even higher heights. And that's such a powerful demonstration when it comes down to spiritual evolution, because when we continue with that, holding on to the lessons that we have learned, yes, you're going to have tests and trials and temptations and things of that nature, but you are what was it that was done, as far as contemplation, spiritual maturity. We gain spiritual mastery from holding on to that thought as the foundation and building upon that. And it just, reminds me of our prophet in this new era of time, and giving us the 5 highest principles known to man as our foundation, and building upon this foundation of being a spirit and a part of the great God Allah, and building upon this foundation of being a Moorish American upon this. And then when I looked at paradigm shift is in reference to the mechanism got damaged, talking about the dial plate of heaven, because man went to a dial plate dealing with the manifest level and redirected the course. And this is why it is so key for us to get these pure lessons and be able to recognizing the fact that remembrance is key, so that we don't allow our own lower selves to redirect the course. And when we look at, let's see, virtues. Of course, I made this into a T-square, but it's such a powerful imagery when you look at all of these branches and offshoots. And again, I reflect back to our Prophet Noble Drew Ali in reference to letting us know these have been given to us by our Creator, but also these vices, they're also a part of our lower nature, or the prophet terms them as foes that we have got to conquer. So if one feels that one's toe is being stepped on and you got to deal with self, when it comes down to applying these lessons, then instead of getting upset or he talking about me, because that was the mindset I had when I first came into Moore's science. When the chairman was teaching the class, I'm like, wait a minute, you talking about me. Well, nobody told you. Looking at it from our higher self and being able to hear without our passions, then we can, because this is between our Creator and our Father God Allah. So we have to acknowledge, what? This aspect that was brought forth is something that I have got to work on. Nobody say you got to get out here and raise your hand. Yeah, that's me. I did that. La, 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 la. No, that's not what this class is for. It's supposed to be for dealing with the. So if you know that there's some categories pull the root out, etc., because it is of no benefit, then this is your point. So beautiful because you can see one truth never contradicts another truth. It's still coming through. So I just want to give you much gratitude and honor, Dr. Shaheen. These are special lessons for. Sometimes if we don't get it in one particular easily identify or make it applicable to the self. So this is my Moorish kin to hopefully you've taken notes or we have the playback because it's definitely coming from our Father's treasure. So gratitude more for calling me forth. Much peace and love to all of my Moorish kin. Islam.
And gratitude to you as well, Goddess and Queen, for being on the manifest and doing the work that you do. You and the tribe of endurance as a whole. Cherubim, seraphim, and the spirit of Almighty God Allah. Goodness gracious. And speaking of the spirit of Almighty God Allah, and the love thought that we seen in this era and time coming through the exhuming of a nation, we're gonna call on our Grand National Chairman. We know our Assistant Grand Sheik is on a mission. So we're gonna call for our Grand National Chairman, Dr. Akin Acton, Pert M. Heru to the coming back. Islam, you there, grand man?
You call me.
Man, you see, we had to add the book in there at all.
Man, I wish a member would.
Islam.
Praise to the Lord unto the last time of these days and time, the one that allows things to bring us his North American national to everything that it takes to save a nation, And I was looking at the topic it was some time ago how we read that, this promise, fulfilling of the dial plate of heaven. And, this is one of the first things that Allah ordained the prophet to bring it to us. Because we just come out of fresh out. This was how we were able to come out of slavery. Because we didn't have a clue. We'd have been buried so deep here in the West, we didn't even know our own nationality. We didn't know from nothing. But now, praise Allah, we got our own Quran. divine constitution. We even got our own questionnaire, and everything. Wonderful, wonderful journey to be able to come out of the negative into the light, because it ain't nothing but the truth. It's just a wonderful journey. So praise the Lord for everything that we got, because more this we done paid the bill to be here. Now you got to just do it. Be it the message that you bring. Islam is without a schism. Whew, powerful. Islam.
That's right. Islamism without the schism. And we give honors to your chairman, and the tribe for all that you do and all that you've done. And you already know, like you say, we got our back, top, front, all that there. Everything. And we know everything is covered, and we definitely put security on what we love and who we love. And if we don't love our holy prophet, if he ain't right, then we know nothing else ain't coming out right. Islamism without the schism. I want to give honors to you, Moors. I want to give honors again to our National Grand Sheikh Emeritus, because he actually the one, that called this platform of Moorish Perspectives in the being, along with the 12 departments and so forth and so on. So we love you, Sheikh. Islamism, and the word can hear you speak as we speak. Peace and love. January 15, 1929. A warning from the prophet to be read at every meeting. I hereby inform all citizens that they must end all radical agitating speeches while at work in their homes or on the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be a severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. When these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any citizen or group of citizens who hold malicious feelings toward the government or the prophet or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the laws laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their card and button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet, Noble Drew Ali. And if the prophet is not right, the government is not right. The prophet therefore is sending out the divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting their prophet and the government. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. By order of Prophet Noble Drew Ali, we bring forth this divine decree. Islamism. Chapter 25. A holy covenant of the Asiatic nations. Ye the children of one father, provided for by his care. The breasts of one mother have given you suck. Let the bonds of affection therefore unite thee with thy brothers, that peace and happiness may dwell in thy father's house. And when ye separate in the world, remember the relation that bindeth you to love and unity, and prefer not a stranger before thy own blood. If thy brother is in adversity, assist him. If thy sister is in trouble, forsake her not. So shall the fortunes of thy father contribute to the support of his whole race, and his care be continued to you all, in your love to each other. Go in peace, Muslims. Moorish movement, divine movement, the everlasting movement. Islamism without the schism. You and I tie. Peace and love.
Peace and love. You and I tie.
Islam.
Brother Shaheen, as always. And our
Peace and love.
classes.
Yeah, we love y'all. Appreciate
Love
that
you,
message,
brother.
brother. Daniel
Love
Day
you,
Grand
Antoine.
Hall, brother.
Islamism without the
Keep up the
schism.
grand work.
You and I tie.
Right. Yeah, we want to give honor to our family as well out there in social media. Charles Warrior, Tariq Bay. We love y'all.
Islam.
Love is leading on, Moors.
That's right.
Y'all in Sunday school. Peace and love. Love.
Keep the clock. Let us not forget to say our due. In love. And we don't play. Praise Allah for you, Lord. Peace and love. Gratitude to all Moors that prayed for me in my household. Gratitude. Peace and love.